the next thing I know, I heard the police open the refrigerator door, and they said it was a dead body in there.
Welcome to Watch Mojo, and today we're looking at the most chilling pieces of evidence found during murder cases.
Do you know that I feel that in part, I am to blame for the condition Bobby is in?
Refrigerated heads.
People don't think it's possible. They don't think this actually happened.
What started as a welfare check ended in horror. Though Charles Rogers had a promising career, he abruptly quit in 1957 and moved back in with his parents. In 1965, officers were called to the home after another relative reported not hearing from them. At first, their search seemed normal, save for a stack of unidentifiable meat sitting in the fridge.
There was a massive amount of bleach that was used.
It wasn't long until they noticed the heads of his parents and realized that the meat they'd found were parts of their bodies. Charles, who was already long gone by that point, was named the main suspect. He was never found, leaving the case unsolved to this day, though some forensic scientists are adamant that he was involved.
Hi, Fiona.
Look what you did to me.
I'm so sorry.
A cell, a treasure map, and home videos.
What the officer did not reveal was that the room also had a one-way mirror and hooks positioned so that a body could be secured on the bed.
Though the main suspect died shortly after being apprehended, what was found in the aftermath made his involvement clear. Leonard Lake and his associate Charles Ng were responsible for the kidnapping, torture, and eventual murder of almost a dozen people. Investigators traced a stolen truck back to Lake's bunker, where they made a shocking discovery: a makeshift cell near a burial site containing several pounds of human remains.
They were mostly skeletal remains that were wrapped. Couldn't really make out if they were men or women because of the time that the bodies had been there.
As if that wasn't enough, they also discovered a handmade map that led them to containers filled with evidence. The information ranged from their victims' names to videotapes detailing their plans. With Lake having taken his own life, Ng took the fall and was placed on death row after being found guilty of 11 homicides.
He recorded a videotape in October 1983 in which he outlined the plan and his barbaric views on women.
What I want is an off-the-shelf sex partner.
Human remains and unsent letters.
He designs a system of pipes leading from Holmes's private apartment to each guest room, where he can control the flow of gas to asphyxiate victims.
One of America's first serial killers is also one of the most insidious. After planning to fake the death of a friend for the insurance payout, H.H. Holmes betrayed him and took his life. He then manipulated the victim's wife into relinquishing custody of 3 of her children to him, leading to their fates and his downfall. In 1894, an investigator was tasked with searching Holmes' house in hopes of finding the missing minors, but was instead met with 2 corpses. He also found undelivered letters written to their mother, revealing another dark layer of Holmes' deceitful ways. The officer was then able to track Holmes down and apprehend him, finally bringing an end to his violent spree.
I was born with the devil in me. I can't help the fact that I'm a murderer no more than the poet can help the inspiration to sing.
A mirror message.
It was a horrifying plea. For heaven's sake, catch me before I kill more. I cannot control myself.
A murderer being self-aware makes their crimes even more chilling. While the violent acts committed by the lipstick killer, later identified as William Hirons, were horrific enough, what made them worse was his lack of control. This was made apparent following the 1945 death of Frances Brown, when officials discovered a message scrawled in lipstick.
Those words were chilling to the public and captured the imagination of the newspaper reporters who made that a very sensational catchphrase.
It was a plea to be caught before he could strike again, alongside a claim that he couldn't stop himself. That note unfortunately came true less than a month later in 1946, when Suzanne Degnan was kidnapped and murdered. Hirons was questioned later that year, where he confessed under duress. Though he later claimed innocence, he received 3 life sentences and spent the rest of his days behind bars.
He told them not to contact the police or the FBI and to put $20,000 in small bills together.
A written rant and punishment map.
Investigators recorded one of his bone-chilling phone calls.
Though he wasn't apprehended until 2018, authorities first got a look into his twisted mindset 40 years earlier. Joseph D'Angelo, more commonly known as the elusive Golden State Killer, had dropped several handwritten documents at the scene of one of his crimes. Though they couldn't trace it back to him then, what they did find were his vindictive ramblings blaming his 6th grade teacher for the crimes he committed in adulthood. He claimed that writing lines caused him to suffer and grow ashamed of himself, which later morphed into anger. The motifs of discipline were also found in a map he had drawn of a neighborhood with the word punishment written on the back, indicating an area he may have intended to attack.
Especially, we want people to give us a call, any suspicious circumstances, prowler calls, anything that seems out of the ordinary to them, to give us a call. And of course, we're responding to these calls.
A corpse-filled crawl space.
Oh, God. More space.
As one of the United States' most infamous serial killers, every detail of John Wayne Gacy's terrible misdeeds is enough to send shivers down anyone's spine. His confession is no different. He drunkenly admitted to killing at least 30 victims, who he then buried beneath his crawl space. Though he was intoxicated, officials were able to get a warrant to thoroughly search his home, and within minutes found decaying human remains.
So they immediately called me, let me know that there was human remains in a crawl space, and at that time I arrested John Gacy for murder.
The more they searched, the more they found, identifying 4 different bodies in the first dig alone. A subsequent search led to the discovery of 26 other victims in his crawl space. The sheer magnitude of his crimes, and how easily he had hidden them, shocked both his community and the country as a whole.
When Snow checks the collarbones of the skeletons found under Gacy's house, none of them are fully fused. These victims were all less than 30 years old.
A macabre poem.
Before I kill you, I'm gonna throw your baby out the window.
To this day, the Zodiac Killer is one of the most prolific and elusive murderers in modern times, with his identity still remaining a mystery. Known for his communications with police, including a series of ciphers, the search for him proved to be fruitless. Though he had sent an anonymous letter following the death of Sherry Jo Bates in 1966, it was a discovery made 2 months later that truly alarmed authorities.
The newly decoded message picks up where the last cryptogram left off.
It said, "I hope you are having lots of fun trying to catch me. That wasn't me on the TV show." Which brings up a point about me. I am not afraid of the gas chamber because it will send me to paradise all the sooner.
Scratched within a library desk was a disturbing poem detailing the sight of a woman's blood spilling onto her dress. The handwriting matched that of the letters sent by the killer. Though it didn't aid in his capture, it did add extra insight into his potential mindset during his sprees of violence.
Before I give you any more details about the good times I had at the reservoir in Green Rock Park, I'd like to know, are the police having a good time with the cryptogram?
Polaroids and a human head.
Goddamn. These are real. Grab it out of me.
All it took was one failed murder to apprehend one of the worst killers of the 20th century. After nearly losing his life, Tracy Edwards escaped the clutches of Jeffrey Dahmer and went straight to the police. Later that night, the near victim and 2 cops returned to his apartment, where they found the knife nearly used to slay him.
In a refrigerator left as it was found, at least 2 heads, the severed remains of victims of the alleged murderer.
That was only scratching the surface. They also noticed an open drawer filled with photos of Dahmer's dismembered victims. Upon those being found, the killer attempted to fight back, only to be subdued. To top it all off, one investigator opened the fridge and was met with a head, the first of several body parts that would later be discovered.
The parts, box after box of dismembered human remains, were taken away. Now the job is to identify the victim.
Letter to victim's mother.
My dear Mrs. Shaw, just got your very nice letter. I am much pleased to know you are not one bit ashamed to strip Bobby naked and bathe him.
Seeing physical evidence is awful enough, but somehow having the exact details written out is even worse. While Albert Fish claimed several lives, it was the murder of Grace Budd in 1928 that eventually led to his capture. In 1934, he penned an anonymous letter to Budd's mother. In the message, he opened with anecdotes about an acquaintance who introduced him to the idea of cannibalism.
Truly, it was a great horror, and the horror of the victim, everyone knows. But the horror of the perpetrator is just as horrific.
He then wrote out exactly what he did to Grace, from his technique to the way he prepared her to eat. The disgusting note was corroborated by him at his arrest, where he shared even more gruesome details. More of his crimes were unearthed, leading to a swift trial in 1935 and his eventual execution in 1936.
Write a letter to Dr. Gregory at Bellevue Hospital. Tell him I won't write any more letters. Ask him in God's name to place me in your custody.
Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications. Decorations made of human remains. Though he doesn't have the same level of notoriety as other killers, he's still one of the most disturbed. After being traced back to the disappearance of a hardware store clerk, Ed Gein was arrested and his farm searched. Once there, not only did officers find his latest victim's eviscerated body, they found a slew of depraved homemade decorations. His house was reportedly full of macabre items crafted from human remains, primarily consisting of bodies he had stolen from graves.
He used human shin bones to prop up a coffee table. He took the tops of skulls and inverted them and used them for soup bowls. He upholstered a chair in human skin.
He even admitted that he targeted the corpses of women who resembled his mother, adding another sick layer to his grotesque misdeeds. A decade later, Gein was finally tried, where he was ruled to be insane and spent the rest of his days in a mental health facility. Which of these discoveries do you find the most disturbing? Let us know in the comments below. Check out these other clips from WatchMojo, and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.